And though our suits now rest in dust, they still remember what we trust. So long, my friends, until we meet again. Don't know how or why or when, but we will meet again. Years of courage, laughter, pain, echo softly in the rain. We fought for tomorrow side by side. Now tomorrow carries our pride. No glory fades that once was shared. No vow forgotten, no soul unprepared. So long, my friends, until we meet again. Don't know how or why or when, but we will meet again. Because we believe the light remains in hearts reborn through joy and pain. So long, my friends, until we meet again. 5 hearts as one, colors that never fade.
Wrong button. There we go. That's the right button. Fine. There we go. Now we'll play this because I thought it was poignant anyway. Because why not, right?
I wonder what we're all gonna do with the Power Rangers over.
We'll do what anybody does. We'll go on living.
Go on. And that's what we're going to have to do without Super Sentai, is that we're going to have to go on living. We're going to have to go on without them. We're going to have to go on without our multicolored spandex heroes because, well, it's all over with. That final episode, the Super Sentai series goes into indefinite hiatus, which is a very kind way of saying being canceled. So this is from the official Toei YouTube account, Toei Super Sentai YouTube account. Announce the heroes we just saw in this opening. Over the years, Super Sentai has had quite a few uh, hit or misses, of course, but always at the core of it is the attempt to create heroes that comfort the hearts of children. In Japan, it's no secret that they have different challenges than we do here in the US. And children, of course, are tasked with different things. And so having heroes that exemplify what it is to self sacrifice for the greater good is very important because there is a great deal of self sacrifice in Japanese culture. It's not a negative. I'm not trying to complain about it or poo poo or say anything negative. I'm just trying to say that this is a reality that these series often root themselves in are creating heroes that exemplify the sacrifice necessary to make Japanese culture what it is and why we admire it so much. As you can see, these Power Ranger teams start poking up here as Saban got a hold of the rights to adapt, and these Super Sentai heroes soon became Power Rangers here in the United States and across the West. Now, of course, we're all aware of how these also became anniversary series, as you can see quite a few flashed on the screen already. But these anniversary series were not so pronounced until we got into Gokaiger showing up. But it's important to look back on all of these teams and recognize just how unique and diverse they are from one. While the Japanese do like to lean into derivative things, Super Sentai managed to stay unique throughout many, many years. And of course, it's Go Busters, which probably had the biggest divorce in suit designs until we got into Q Ranger. They had craziest suit designs, I think, series up to um, King Oger. Of course, we had the first Versus series as well here. Good idea. Hero Major was a lot of fun. Zenkaiser really took things to the extreme, I think. They pushed it pretty much to the edge. King Oger, again, really redesigned what it looked like. And of course, Boon was a lot of fun with their weird diving masks. And finally, Gozu, which was the team that finished out the 50 years of Super Sentai. And of course, our titular hero, rather than wishing to restart the universe or make things his own way, simply wishes for the ring war that had brought him together with all of the other heroes to continue. And so the cycle repeats until somebody gets a hold of all these rings again and wishes for something different. So the door is open for Super Sentai to return, at least through Gozuger's storyline, very simply. Someone gathers all the rings and says, we're starting it over. And ta-da, we have Super Sentai reporting. But I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. Now, that being said, there are some good things that have come out of Japan, of course. Now, this isn't terrible, right? We're not going to cry about that kind of thing. But it is good news that Takaichi was able to get a hold of a landslide victory, the most historic shift in power in Japanese history since, of course, World War II. And Takaichi is at the center of it. She's become a cultural phenomenon across the country, and folks are absolutely alive with the changes that she has made almost immediately at taking office. So, congratulations to her. This is one of those videos that celebrates her rise to power. I don't know where this came from, and I couldn't find the edit without the little frog guy saying this stuff down in the corner. I don't think anybody in our audience is going to be conflicted over what's being said here, but if you're out there and you have your heart broken because of what this frog says, well, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. So, this is Madam Takayuki when she was young. Rock star, drummer, more specifically, car enthusiast, and biker goes on to become Prime Minister of Japan. Would you believe it? Would you believe that? In any universe, would you believe that? Not only the Prime Minister of Japan, but probably the most celebrated Prime Minister of Japan since her predecessor, Abe, or mentor Abe. So I am absolutely excited to see what comes out of there. Of course, what we have for bad news is that the Super Sentai heroes are leaving, but I think the age of Super Sentai is more. Let's get off of her. That's a bring that back. That's a, there we go. Sorry about that. I didn't realize we were paused on her leg. That was a little strange. But I think the era of Super Sentai is more exemplary of a time where Japan could rely on peace. Um, Not that it was foolish to rely on peace, obviously, but between what Japan and the US had been able to create in the Pacific, of course, with South Korea's assistance as well, but South Korea is its own basket. But between Japan and the US, a great deal of peace in the Pacific was what we grew up with. The Asian invasion of the United States and the West really was facilitated because of how much business was happening between the United States and Japan, particularly across media and the evolution of media delivery. And that kind of attitude about an open world and endless possibilities and joining hands and forming teams with random people is a very, very utopic idea. You have to have a utopian mindset to approach that. And we don't live in such a time. We live in a time where, of course, Madame Takaichi runs on a platform of law and order and end to chaos, a ceasing of China's rampant just bad attitudes and difficulty dealing with Japan. Just the end of that, the rejection of North Korea's permission to test nuclear weapons over Japan's head, all of that. And that's not a very utopic mindset. That's not a utopian way of thinking of the world. That's a very nationalist. It's a very secure mindset that you have to be on guard because your neighbors aren't so nice after. And so that's not even speaking to what's been going on between Japan and Russia again. But the situation that we find ourselves in is that a Super Sentai is leaving the world's consciousness, not disappearing forever, but leaving the world's consciousness as an active brand. It's leaving behind also that period of peace, that period of the expectation that your neighbor and the random person down the street shares your values almost exactly. That's not to say that Japan won't return to that very quickly. You've seen how they're handling folks that are meddlesome in Japan, to say the least. So I'm not sure that this will be like a period of time in Japan that will last very long. A lot of people speculating about this hiatus say it's going to be about 10 years of hiatus. So I'm not entirely sure that it's going to be that short. You know, there's part of me that feels like this is going to be more like a 25-year situation in order to have like a full generational shift to get back around to the mentality that made Super Sentai so popular for a very long time. And of course, with Gavon Infinity being a law enforcement television show, now of course it has its Sentai influences and whatnot, so it's obviously not going to be Blue SWAT, but I thought it was going to be, honestly, when they were talking about a more mature plot. We get more of a fusion of Sentai and Gavon than we do anything else. So it is pretty cool that these suit actors were, familiar with the attitudes of the heroes they were portraying. And of course, there goes you last. So, like I said, though, this era of peace that ushered in Super Sentai's importance to the world is on its way out. I don't like to get overtly political with bounding because it's just not. It feels strange to try and tie today's politics to what's happening in media, even though the two are very tightly wound together. Particularly now with all the showrunners that we have, just rip headlines out of like Daily Caller or whatever and slap that up on a show. Every villain is some Trump stereotype or whatever, or some other like a Biden stereotype. It's all very paper thin these days, but that's why I don't like to drag in the politics, though, because it's already there. It's already annoying, obvious. But this has become an important thing to, I guess, absorb that like I said, the peace and the tranquility that the Super Sentai series was sort of built around, that only an alien threat, a demon threat, a threat from beyond, something you have to worry about, is leaving. And so this graphic of seeing the Super Sentai heroes rushing off to their next battle. As you can see here, maybe not if it's so tiny. I'll see if I can guys, but as you can see here, they're turned away and they're rushing toward their next adventure, you know, rather than having them all lined up looking at the camera like in previous series. So it is exemplary, though, of that passing of the torch, that this new generation of heroes have to be less peace seeking, I guess, and more justice seeking. That they can't just simply expel the villain because the villain is not so easily expelled. It's a little closer to home this time than anything else. So it seems to be that the attitude around this is shifting, which makes it interesting as to why we're having a Power Ranger in this climate of all things. It baffles the mind. Let's check over in the chat here. We've got some folks that dropped in early. We have Conrado Javier here saying Sentai died for Hasbro's sin. We'll get into that in a little bit too. Don't worry. That's not escaping. I noticed that. Everybody really noticed it, but whatever. We have Sakura Mita saying, "Bra cider. Why early? Can you at least wait till Friday? Is your X notification fixed?" No, I don't have anything from you. I'm sorry. I don't know what's happened. Whoops. That was the wrong screen. Just the wrong screen. Darn it. I'm just on top of it today, fellas. I'm sorry. I'm just on top. Here we go. My apologies, everyone. I did not mean to flashbang you uh, close up there. I was just trying to get the video out of the studio. And I got the wrong button. Surprise. I don't think it's early. We already had the last episode of Super Sentai this past Sunday for Japan, Saturday. Um, we have Ironcaster here saying, "I started watching with Don Brothers and King Osier was my favorite." Yeah, those are pretty good ones to start off with. Don Brothers was very experimental, so you kind of got the fringe edge of Sentai's imagination there, and then sort of a slingshot to the other end of that with King Osier. So Alpha Omega's here. What's up, man? Yeah, we're just talking about Japan and what's going on. Pretty awesome. Ironcaster says, "What makes Japan unique is their strongest selling point. It's why so many of us have turned to them for culture and why they are at their strongest." It's true. Again, under Takaichi, it's a very different environment because she has a much more forward-facing attitude about Japan than her two predecessors. Um, like Minato Abe, she is absolutely Shinzo Abe, excuse me, not his father, Shinzo. Like Shinzo Abe, she is completely unabashedly in love with Japan. So there's no like holding her tongue or waiting for permission. It's right there. And it's one of the things I appreciate about her is that there's videos of her going around where someone fainted during a speech, and so she had to not use microphone because in Japan there's laws against having repeating noise during an emergency situation. Which again, it makes a lot of sense not to have somebody trying to sing or perform or deliver a speech while emergency crews are trying to coordinate. But does make the job easier when you can tell what's going on. So not having the microphone, she shouted over the top of the situation in order to deliver the speech to the people to go vote. And you know, people stayed around and they listened as best they could. It was a large crowd. Of course, you couldn't hear all the way in the back, but perhaps there were people whispering. So either way, it had a very impactful effect on the social media of Japan, as it even leaked out here to class with people praising her for her tenacity and her willingness to continue delivering that message to her people despite the situation she was facing. So, and it looks pretty good too when you put that soft and challenging the moment music behind it. Feels very good to see a character, a political character. She's a real human being. Of course, she has to put on a persona to speech. Everybody does, even Mr. Trump. But when she's delivering this, it's good to see her leaning over the railing and shouting and being very emotional. At one point, she cries. It's a very good video. If exactly see it. I couldn't find it in my notifications this afternoon. Sorry. Will Infinity get a simulcast? Gavon Infinity, as so far, no. They have switched over the Gozuger uh, YouTube channel to Gavon Infinity, but it has not been made available here in the West yet. So at this point, no, it is not being simulcast to the United States. It may be simulcast to other places in the Asia Pacific region, but it is not being simulcast. Uh, like I said, it's not so far. Um, when will they announce the actors for Power Rangers Disney Plus reboot? I don't know. Like they're planning on having this thing ready to ship by 27, right? I don't know how they're gonna do that. They haven't done any like cast announcements or anything yet. Like honestly, unless they're relying so much on the volume that they're gonna do just film all this crazy stuff in a warehouse somewhere and just have a couple of locations where people are out under the sun. I don't know. Like it's astonishing to me to have like a production that's supposed to be delivering next year, not making any casting announcements that are concrete, just a bunch of hearsay running around. It's one of those things where I say again, there is no plan for this. See, Power Rangers is another one that, of course, because Super Sentai is the donor to it. Power Rangers is a very difficult brand to translate into the current leftist political mentality of media makers. Okay, that's video game guys, TV guys, movie guys, comic guys, everybody here in the West. It's very difficult for these people that are in charge of making media to wrap their head around what the hell a Power Ranger is because they have to deny the inherent masculine attraction. And that completely defeats every aspect of a Power Ranger when you start throwing out the chief foundational purpose of it is to teach masculinity in action. Say what you want about Trini and Kimberly being there. They don't sell action figures now, do they? No, that's right. That's why everybody bitched and complained that Lightning wasn't putting out girl action figures for so long. Then everybody got them, and all of a sudden, Lightning went out of business. How about that? Because people don't buy pink and yellow. Well, unless yellow's a dude. But most of the time, they don't buy pink and yellow. I'm sorry. It's just a reality. But when you go stripping out the attraction, the attractive factor for um, male fans, which is, believe it or not, guys do like seeing guys doing cool stuff. It's not all about bikinis and beer. It actually is about a guy who's, bunch of muscles with a big gun out in the middle of a jungle going, ah, it is a lot like that. That really works for us. That's our thing. But they have to scoop that out because that's toxic masculinity. That's the definition of toxic masculinity. What are you doing? Like, we can't just have guys like doing stuff. Ugh. That's why everybody like has this huge problem with a female Red Ranger because we all know what it means. We all understand what it means under Hasbro's direction, under Disney's direction. It means Rey. It means Rey Skywalker. It means someone who's just going to be automatically perfect at everything, having zero drawbacks, no personality quirks that make it difficult until they need them. Until they need them. And all of a sudden, they've got all these emotional quirks, and they don't have them anymore when that moment's passed. Okay, we all know what it means. And that's the big problem now, is that they're not trying to deliver a story that appeals to boys. And so this will fall on its face because once again, it will fall on its face because it doesn't appeal to boys. Look what happened with Percy Jackson season 2. They were all jazzed up. They got whatever the hell a blue carpet show is, right? Like they got to show up on a blue carpet. I don't know what the hell a blue carpet is. They got to show up on it. Maybe it's a Disney carpet. I don't know. One of those fancy mouse carpets. But they had a blue carpet ceremony to show this off. Everybody was like, ooh, ah, oh, Percy Jackson season 2. And the only takeaway is it's drowning in politics. It's drowning in DEI. So what do you think the Percy Jackson showrunners are gonna do with Disney Plus's Power Ranger reboot? Huh? Yeah, that's right. Rita's gonna be the good guy, Zordon's gonna be the bad guy, and somehow, some way, there's gonna be some kind of cosmic sexual harassment going on. I promise you. That's gonna be central to it. But yeah, Flower Rangers. Yep, that's what you're looking for. That's what's gonna happen. Yep, Flower Rangers. Tokushoutsu. Yeah, I don't think that they're going to uh, stream it over there until the series is over. Tokushoutsu is, of course, through Shout Factory, and Shout Factory has syndication agreements with Toei, but I think that's on a series by series basis. It's not a blanket. Here, have all the Super Sentai. I think that it is on a series by series basis because they have other licensing agreements with Europeans and things like that. Because bizarrely, somehow, Japanese media is more popular in parts of Europe than it is in the US. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around. We have a nerdy Texan accountant member of the channel saying hello, everyone, and also a member of for 4 months. We really appreciate that. Welcome back. Thanks for helping us keep the lights on around here. Alpha Omega asked, "You've been seeing the crash outs over her getting the youth vote and supermajority. A lot of white people who don't live in Japan think it's terrible." Well, what do you know? What do you know? A lot of white people that don't live in Japan have a problem with what's going on in Japan. Gee, wow. What a surprise. What do you want to guess that maybe those people just are only invested because they thought they were going to have another like rainbow color, right? It's just not going to work. You can say all you want about the history of Japan. The majority of Japanese adults view that whole attitude as foreign. So that's you're up against when you're disapproving of what's happening in Japan right now, you are up against thousands of years of tradition. So I don't envy people who want to take a negative stance about the recent Japanese elections because it's stupid. Don't do that. Don't fight. You see what happens to people who fight them? They get wrapped up in a tarp. they get sushied in a tarp. They're calling them the sushi squad, by the way. That's what they're calling those guys, the sushi squad. But leave it to Japan to find like the most snuggly, cuddly way of dealing with people who are being difficult. We're gonna put you in a timeout blanket, okay, champ? I love it. But again, they're predicting like some type of like Hollywood movie outcome where like there's this sudden dropping of red and black Virgin windmill banners all across Tokyo. And they start goose stepping and singing German folk songs. The mind of these people are so warped and upside down that they can't possibly understand why people who have had a tradition of strict and rigid cultural rules would want to return to that after a short time of experimenting, not having those strict, rigid cultural rules. Okay. Why, oh, why, after thousands of years of having a very closed off society, would Japan want to suddenly go back to that after only a couple of decades of flirting with the concept of multiculturalism? I wonder. Could you at least wait for Nerdigans? Nerdigans is with her family, and so when I asked her if she was going to do a show tonight, she said that she was going to return next week. So you can expect her back. She's alive, but she is with family right now, and that's good. It's good for her to be with her family. Of course, here at the beginning of the year, who doesn't want to go to vacation? We anxiously await Miss Nerdigan's return next week. Conrado Vieira asked, we lost a task force or a sheriff. Three sheriffs is what it seems, who all have the same name. Yeah. Anyway, Blackfield Timon says black and yellow, pink and yellow rather, only sell if you sell all of them in a kit bundle. Cider. It's true. If you get them all packaged together as one team, yeah. But if they're individuals, no, they're just as you find them in Ollie's. They're with the Eternals action figures. Just there's no market. You know? I often wonder why they included the girl characters in these series, and I think it was largely because a lot of the children had sisters, and they figured that if the girls had some type of presence with the boy thing, that the girls would want to join in with the boy thing because the boys are having fun doing the boy thing. So there are girls that are there, girls to role play. So I always just questioned the logic behind it. Like, I understand that a team that only has one female ranger on it tends to suffer, but look at Kiryuger. Like, Kiryuger has like 8, 10, 12. They have like 10 rangers, and only 2 of them are girls, right? There's only 2 girls on the entire team, right? Yeah, Violet and Pink. Yeah, the rest of them are dudes. Like that's the most popular Super Sentai series in quite a long time. I think Gokaiger and Kiryuger are like tied for, like the bestest of the best, right? At least, in the modern. Alpha Omega says, I had a pink ranger because I had a crush on Kimberly. Well, sure. I mean, some boys may pick them up as like the companion style action figure for their male figure and things like that, and she's there to be the adoring princess that you have to rescue. That sort of. Other guys like you just sort of have it as an example of, this is a character that I have an appreciation for, so I will put it on a good place to display it. I understand the logic. I just for the primary demographic, 5 to 8-year-old boys just tend not interact with that. They're not thinking about role playing the girl. They don't think about that. So the girls don't even think about because Super Sentai is, and of course Power Rangers being the derivative product, has so much violence in it. A lot of girls, and not all, but a lot of girls don't engage because women more often than not, do not engage with violence on a conflict resolution scale. This is why it's strange to see characters like Ray having such a proficiency in combat and yet resisting conflict at every turn. These two things can't exist at the same time. Just one of those things. I hope the rights revert back to Toei. Oh, for Power Rangers? I don't believe that there's any rights to get back. I don't think there's any rights to get back. Oh, well. Sakuramita says, Cider, I see Power Rangers on trending and found comments where everyone is fighting. Yes, yes. You see that very often. And it tends to be the base level of discourse that happens in the fandom is people just want to kill each other. I would know. I posted a less than 2-minute long AI video, and there were people replying with gifs of people being shot in the head, like full on dudes being shot in movies, all that stuff. KYS, a whole bunch of very friendly things to say to a fellow Ranger fan. Just simply posted an AI video. Boy, howdy, was I well acquainted with just how furious those people. Sakura Mita adds, at this rate, a civil war coming over Power Rangers and expected of them getting what they want, only to say they hate it just like the leftist folk after Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Well, Rise of Skywalker doesn't have any audience. That's the thing. Like, even the people who are like hyper, super supportive of all the leftist DEI stuff in Star Wars absolutely hated Star Wars Skywalker, Rise of Skywalker, because it was like 7 different movies. I think it was like 7 different scripts smashed together into one. So that, yeah, it's gross, and that's what happened with it. There's only a few people that like Rise of Skywalker, and I'm pretty sure that they're possessed by demons. So we have Train and More here saying hello. Yeah, I read your paragraph about what went on there with Super Sentai, and you're right, it is bittersweet to see these heroes. We have Jared Camden here saying, why does this have to happen? Well, primarily, if you really want to look at the core problem, beyond all of this talk about global politics and whatnot, Japan doesn't have a lot of 5 to 8-year-olds right now. And they don't want to make Super Sentai for adults because that's silly. And I agree. You can make it for teenagers, but then you're bordering into Common Rider. And I think that's where Gavon Infinity is trying to seat itself, is where Common Rider tends to sit at like 13 to 16-year-olds. Gavon Infinity is trying to be somewhere between 10 and 15. It's trying to hit the same demographic, but from a Law and Order teamwork end, whereas Common Rider tends to be a found family situation where there's one protagonist, Common Rider, and he has a few others behind. We should talk about that too. But how Common Rider is just the story about Common Rider fighting other Common Riders now. It was cool for a while, but now it's just like, what can defeat a Common Rider? Oh yeah, another Common Rider. So it's just that's it. It's just constant Common Riders fighting each other. It's getting, I don't know, repetitive, I guess. I don't know. Who's the bad guy this week? It's another jackass in a helmet. What do you know? I don't know. Maybe it's getting to me alone. I don't know. But Train and Moore says Japan makes quality entertainment, but they're too trustworthy in other people. Trustworthy, or at least expecting them to keep their contractual obligations, which seems to be very hard for adapters. Jared Camden says Sentai was a big part of me, and now it's like a big part of my soul. Yeah, a lot of people felt a lot of deep connection to Super Sentai because of what it represented over the years. As it was stated by the producers, it's about making people feel like they are living with these heroes, that they are not forgotten, that there is a hero out there that will stand with them and stand for them. And without that, that is definitely a gap style of hero that Super Sentai heroes were often framed as. Power Rangers, again, they had their own appeal. They were mostly based in sort of like a knight uh, sort of personality. There were divergent characters, obviously, but most of how the Power Rangers were characterized is that they were sort of knights. They were summoned because of unique attributes, and it was their duty to do this. Whereas Super Sentai really leaned to the adventure side, that this was an opportunity to go from a mundane life and into a more action-packed and interesting. At least that's what I saw with most of the teams, is that they embraced the adventure side versus the call to action. There were teams that definitely did respond to the call to action, 5, but again, the Power Rangers were more rigid in what a Power Ranger was supposed to get done, whereas Super Sentai would often try to mingle the idea of a Sentai hero also being an adventurer. Skip down here just a minute. Fell way behind. So Alpha Omega says nothing says well-adjusted human like posting gore in response to a silly AI thing. Tell me about it, right? Like, tell me about it. I'm still in astonishment of just like how many people came out of the woodwork to tell me to not exist anymore. It's completely bizarre. Ironcaster says Common Rider ate too much of that older audience. I wonder how Ultraman fares age-wise. Yeah, it's a good idea to ask about that. I think Ultraman, honestly, surprisingly, would probably sit higher than Super Sentai because a lot of the commentary is emotional with Ultraman, whereas Super Sentai really leaned into, these guys in spandex are doing cool stuff that you can do in the parking lot while you're waiting for your parents. So, whereas Ultraman tends to lean into the emotional end of that story. So, Sagittarius Saya says Simon Bennett is not only called Jason David Frank a helmet head, Hyam Saban also called them helmet heads back in the day. Well, of course, Hyam had a bit more ground to stand on that one, honestly, than Simon did. Not just because Hyam Saban was the Saban of Saban brands, but also because Hyam Saban was saying that very early on in the phenomenon of Power Rangers. And so Simon Bennett saying that to Jason David Frank, I believe, during one of the reunion specials. It may have been during Super Mega Force, God forbid. I think it may have been during Super Mega Force, where he was telling him he can be replaced with a helmet. They don't need to have Jason David Frank appear on screen. And it's like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. I'm not stupid. Yeah, you do. And see, this is what Hayam Saban was doing to them back in the day in order to muscle them out of asking for money. it was only $1 billion brand back when, you could buy lollipops for 25 cents for a big old gaggle of them, or $20 would fill a shopping cart. It was only $1 billion in cash today that could fund a small European nation. That was all. Who would want to part with that smidgen of change, right, Mr. Saban? No, I'm absolutely with Austin St. John when he said that they were, deserving of more pay for what they had generated, Saban Brands and Bandai. It didn't come to be, and we ended up having the peace conference suddenly come to light. This is why the helmet head thing smacks so differently with Simon, because Simon was saying this like very deep into the Power Rangers mythos, and it's just too late, pal, to start saying that, hey man, you don't matter. Like they do. They do. That's the importance of casting these guys. You can tell when Hasbro and Neo Saban were just lazy with casting. You could feel that. They were just, yeah, whatever. You could feel that. It was never present in Super Sentai that I saw. They were always trying to best match the face to the character. Timon says, yes, Cider, Common Rider has become a gimmick. It's true. Common Rider, again, what is the most powerful thing a Common Rider can fight? Another Common Rider. That seems to be the case that, again, like what happened with a lot of Super Sentai. What did we finish Super Sentai off with? Well, other Rangers. That's right. What's the most powerful thing a Super Sentai hero can fight? Another Super Sentai. And so this is kind of the repetitive attitude that I'm glad at least broke with Super Sentai of going on hiatus. We won't have that. Hopefully, Gavan Infinity won't drift too far into like who could defeat a Gavan. Ah, yes, another Gavan. It's tiring to refer to Gavan as a multiple. It's very tiring because it is one character. You know that name to belong to one guy in his crazy cool leather jacket. It does not belong to three people. It's very bizarre to refer to Gavan as a rank, but it is what it is. It is. Timon says Toku needs better writers that know their fan base better, not to focus only on toys. Toys are what makes sure that it has funding. And that's the suckiest part about all this is that the toys make sure that the funding exists in order to keep the show going. And without that, you end up with a show that has crash landed. Speaking of toys, you can get a like premium Bandai collectible Pegasword Memorial. I think we can play the audio for this. We'll have nope, that's the theme song. Sorry, can't do that. Sorry, that will definitely strike us. Theme song. But yeah, this is the deluxe edition. It is prop sized for the television show, not kid sized. So, maybe it is kid sized. Oh no, it is. It's bigger. That's right. And so this is adult size, so you can walk around pretending that you are part of the ring war. Get a hold of all the Sentai rings to have your wish to bring Sentai back come true. Of course, it has the light reactive thing. Apparently, also, like we can't play a stupid song, but apparently, also, each of the Sentai rings that you plug into this, it somehow reads and can name the team that you have plugged in. So that's pretty neat. I don't know about you, but I find that to be pretty cool that it can just understand whatever ring you're putting in this. So it's pretty neat. It's not just the Gozuju rings that it responds to. I don't know about the lighting effect if it changes for each team or whatever, but from what I've seen, each ring reacts differently when it's attached. Yeah, as it's demonstrating here. No, it turns white. Oh no, it turns. All right. So that's what happens. You plug that ring in, and it reads out the team name, and that's the character you have there. Of course, take a sword is interact or change. I don't know about you, but this is UB1 winner. I love how after all these years, they're still not sure about English. After all these years, still not sure. UB1 winner. UB1 winner. Gotta But yeah, you can get a hold of this over at Premium Bandai for 22,000 yen. For Americans, that's not too much, honestly. Let me just run that into the converter here. Hold on just a second. That is $140, which is, I think, roughly the cost of a um, master grade gunpla kit right now. So, like a really, I think it's like the Barbados one, metal Barbados one is like 140. Anyway, it's the cost of a Zoid. So, you have your pick. You can get a hold of a Take a Sword transformation device, or you can not. Yes, that's fair. But yeah. We have Kenny F. and Powers here saying UB Obi-Wan winner. Yeah, exactly. Right. Suddenly Star Wars. Is Spencer okay? I didn't see him stream for a week now. Oh, he's over on the website. They are working on an SEO overhaul of the website, so that way we are meeting Google's expectations. So that is intense amount of testing, trial and error. So feel free to check out the website, though. We are going to be talking about an article on it. So feel free to check out the website, boundingincomics.com. That's right, we have a website. We're not just a YouTube channel. It's not just this pretty face that contributes. So there you go. But, Sagittarius says, I can't get over what Hasbro did. I wish I want the agreement with Toei of Japan, such Tokyo Sentai Precure. Hasbro owns the rights to Precure? Did I miss that? Did they buy the rights to make that? Make those toys? Or is this referring to the end of Super Sentai and so a Precure crossover isn't, well, a live action isn't possible? Oh, my audio is all over. So I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. Hold on a second. Let's see where I'm pulling from. Is this any better? Are you reading me any better now? I'll have to wait a second. Glitter Force. Is that one that already exists? I have to wait. Find out if my audio. Sorry. I didn't realize it. It's part of the trouble of not having a co-host. If there's nobody to be like, hey, your mic sucks. So it's the mic is still acting up, is it? Let me see if I can adjust the volume. Is that coming through a little better now? A little cleaner? Maybe too loud? Sorry. Just trying to make sure that I'm not blowing anybody's eardrums out here. I know I brought the show to a complete dead halt while I screw around with my audio settings. Gotta love it. Totally professional. Totally professional. But need a Glitter Force reboot on Disney Plus. Wow, that might be something they'd want to take an interest in, but I'm not sure it's going to be any Glitter Force that you'd recognize. So I think it's coming through the stream. Okay, Kenny F. and Powers says it sounds okay to him. We'll continue and we'll see what the chat has to say. So at the end of this, we usually get a handoff ceremony. So what we ended up with was Gavon Infinity standing by himself in a black void as the Sentai rings of the 10th, 15th, 20th, 25th, 30th, 35th, 40th, 45th, and 50th anniversary teams, the Red Rangers of those teams, float around him. And he, of course, receives a Sentai ring of his own. Let me see if I can just dig that. I think we can get away with showing where Gavon and so, yeah, we'll see. We'll risk it, okay? Toei, you can take this down if you hate showing. This is pretty good. So this again was the handoff. Now, usually Super Sentai has two Red Rangers that are walking toward each other. They raise their hand, they high five, walk. And the Ranger that is meant to take over is then standing center stage and close, and off we go. Now, of course, this can't happen because Sentai is over. So Now, I happen to like this approach a lot, that it wasn't all 50 of the Sentai Reds that were gathered together to perform this. It was the anniversary red rings, if you will, the anniversary rings that did this, that caused this transformation possible. I also think it's pretty funny that Gavan Infinity gets his own Sentai ring, but it's silver. It's not gold and it's not blue like for Gozu Polar's Control. Um, and again, Tega June's was not silver either, white, the color of her uh, Sentai rings, red. Maybe they were red. Either way, um, this is clearly silver. And so it represents that Gavan Infinity is part of the Super Sentai continuum. Now, whether that means that Super Sentai is going to have any presence in Gavan Infinity or not, or if like Gavan is considered to be the like zero, the zero Sentai after 50, I guess, is unclear. I don't think we're going to see Super Sentai showing up in Gavan Infinity. I think Toei really wants to like really separate Project Red from Super Sentai, and Gavan Infinity is of course going to be sort of the escort character that appears to be entering this in order to establish how he works and how his team works and that sort of thing. And then going forward with the other Project Red stories, he's going to be some type of, okay, we're in this new universe. Here's this new hero. We're going to have a team up. Bye. I'm going to go jump into the next dimension. Yeah, that's his ability. His ship can travel between dimensions with the jump drive. So what that sounds like to me is that he's going to tour the Project Red universes after his own series and introduce us to these different heroes. So again, I don't expect any Sentai heroes or even Origa Red to show up in that menagerie. They're even talking about making a tokusatsu series that doesn't involve a hero that transforms. So I'm perplexed by that, but there again, I mean, isn't Bio Booster? No, Bio Booster Guyver does transform, right? He's just a regular dude. So, yeah, because Mark, him, whatever. Luke Skywalker played him in a 90s movie that's getting a Blu-ray release, right? Diver, right on that one? Jared Camden asks, why does Sentai have to end? Well, let's just jump over to the truth. Hasbro's Power Rangers purchase took toy rights back from Bandai Namco, leading to the death of Super Sentai. So there you go. That's why. That's it. Bye-bye. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming. But that's why. The reality is that the series itself relied very heavily on the funding from the adapters, the American adapters licensing. So the money that I Am Saban paid, the money that Disney paid, that I Am Saban paid again, that Hasbro paid, contributed significantly to the coffers that uh, Toei themselves were getting. Then Bandai, because they were in charge of making the toys, they got to double dip. All right. So they would make all these toys for Super Sentai, and then they'd get an order from America that they had to repackage those with Power Rangers on them as opposed to Super Sentai. And that's what they got to do. Now, when Hasbro bought those rights in order to make their show, the wheels came off the machine because being a competing toy brand meant that Hasbro had an obligation to make their own Power Rangers toys. But because of copyright law, they couldn't just take what Bandai had made and just stamp out their own version of it. They had to create a completely different toy, okay? With completely different molds, completely different electronics, blah, 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 factories, blah, 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 all that, in order to make sure that they didn't intrude on Bandai's unique designs, because guess what? The exact same suits were available on markets in the Asia Pacific region, which created that divide in the marketplace that allowed Bandai to flood the Asia Pacific region with all sorts of their action figures, but forbade Power Rangers from selling over there. And inversely, forbade Bandai from selling in the West their Super Sentai stuff. And so, well, directly, you could get it secondhand, obviously, directly. And so, because Hasbro was so desperate to claim back the look of Power Rangers, they leaned very hard into Mighty Morphin, which created so many more problems, which was compounded by Bandai's effort to cash in on that audience. Remember the Lightning Collection? That's right. Now Hasbro is in a tough position because they have a need to create their own Power Rangers, but they have to make their own Power Rangers that aren't interfering with Bandai's designs, which, originally come from Plex in Japan. And so when you look at that from like this zoomed out perspective, what you end up finding is that because Hasbro had to have their own Power Ranger toys, Super Sentai is dead. The money that went to Bandai that kept this program alive for their toy production, which again fed into Toei's coffers to be able to make more of this, no more. It's gone. That's why it has to end. That's the truth. We have Beaky Gamer saying Hasbro sucks. Yep, absolutely. We have Ironcaster saying yet again Hasbro is to blame. 100% as usual. If there was ever a toy brand that figured out a way to screw itself over, shoot itself in the foot, and fall ass over tea kettle down a mountainside into a volcano, it was them. Like Hasbro just amazingly finds the absolute worst way to go out. It's not even like a polite way. They just find the most bombastic, horrible thing they could do and do it. They've got to be possessed by demons. Hasbro wanted to make Power Rangers less like Sentai. Well, chiefly it was the violence. They have a really big problem with the violence because, again, the rating. It's so hard to explain this to Sentai fans because Sentai fans aren't here in the middle of children's media. I want to create children's media. Well, excuse me. I want to get paid to create children's media. Let's put it that way. I want a job in making children's media. Now, it's all well and fine to want to create the Power Ranger stories, adapt them, things like that. It's all well and fine. But the problem is that US television censorship demands different age ratings, and age ratings largely dominate how parents choose programming for their kids these days, thanks to streaming services allowing them to sort by those age ratings. It's not about tricking them anymore. They actually have a drop down menu where they choose the age group or the age rating that they want displayed. And then Junior and Sally sit there and play and watch TV all day long or listen. A lot of these shows just play on the background in a daycare. I shit you not. That's how it goes. But the reality is that Power Rangers, because it is such a bipolar production, I've hated this since the beginning of the series. The only thing that I ever found redeeming about the slapstick comedy was Bulk and Skull. As every character after them tried to copy that stupid crap, I absolutely hated that. It does not belong outside of the Mighty Morphin story. I'm sorry. Slapstick comedy is just dumb. But Power Rangers became dominated by it when they weren't wearing their suits. And this created a very, very difficult Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation for the brand. Because on one end, you have these happy-go-lucky Power Rangers that are magicians, and they're working at a cafe, and they're teaching each other kung fu, and they're doing gymnastics, and one of them dances. Wow, they're so cool. I want to be a community member like them, and the show ends on death. Every episode of Power Rangers ends with them killing something. Not just stabbing it, shooting it. No. Exploding it into oblivion. This creature has no way of coming back. There's no rescue team that can put this thing back together because it's dust. Okay? Now, that can't sit next to Paw Patrol. That can't be next to Paw Patrol. That can't be sitting there next to Blaze and the Monster Machines because the conflict resolution in both of those shows is simply a lesson in better behavior. Okay? Paw Patrol, the emergencies that they have to deal with constantly revolve around some schmuck going out there and making trouble for himself. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, the problems that the Paw Patrol have to solve involve either an adult human or a one of the pups creating a chain reaction that has to be dealt with by the others. It's simply learning a better behavior is the conflict. On the other end of that spectrum is Blaze and the Monster Machines. Blaze and the Monster Machines, their conflicts spawn out of other trucks trying to cause mayhem to win a race. So because there is a Dick Dastardly character that is committed to causing havoc, there is havoc. But that havoc is always managed by confronting the cheater in his cheating. There is no battle, there's no fighting. If there is any type of competition to settle anything, it is when the cheater is forced to not cheat and thus be confronted with his lack of skill. And that's it. That's the conflict resolution. Okay. PJ Masks have been off the air for a very long time. Even then, the PJ Masks, most of their conflict resolution was them just dissing the bad guy into submission. They just taunted, just teased him into submission. That was basically most of their conflict resolution. It was fighting in that too. But Power Rangers comes along and says, okay, so we're happy-go-lucky teenagers that are teaching you how to be good community members, and then we murder things at the end of the episode. it, is, it is very hard to explain to mothers who are trying to instill in their children a set of behavior they think that kid needs to have, that yes, the murder at the end is good. That creature that was only created to create mayhem and chaos and evil has to be destroyed, ma'am. That is how peace is retained in this small California coastal town that is inexplicably the focus of this space witch. In this thousands-year-old conflict against a wizard with his head trapped in a tube. Your 5-year-old needs to absorb this. I can just imagine the Dr. Phil episode if Power Rangers became a thing today. Like there had been no pre-existing effort and it had become this massive success today, like right now this year. The people protesting in the streets over this would just be miles long. There would be like people doing sit-ins in the middle of the highway to stop Zordon from killing all the innocent monsters. They're just immigrating to Earth for a better life. Oh, I'm going to hell. Oh, I'm going to hell for that for sure. We have Sagittarius Seiya is saying America is not making American tokusatsu because the angry mums of America are not going to be tolerated. Well, they're not going to tolerate it. You're right. The issue is that we have very strict controls about how children's media is meant to be presented, and Power Rangers exploited a loophole by having so much goody good choo choo stuff in it that the naughty kill stuff at the end was okay. But again, it's aimed at 5 to 8-year-olds. And that's primarily been the problem with this, is that the violence is more in line with Dragon Ball Z, Ben 10, Owl House. It's much more in line with those programs where they are enjoying a PG-13 rating. And that would greatly benefit the storytelling of Power Rangers. However, 13-year-olds tend not to buy too many action figures. Gone are the days of Billy being in line at the toy store in order to get a hold of a hot White Ranger action. In reality, they're more engaged with Fortnite and more engaged with video games in general than they are with toys that involve role-playing or imagination. It's just the state of things. A lot of parents decided to let the tablet raise their child, and as such, children are more engaged with electronics than they are with their own sense of exploration. The monsters are migrants who wanted a good life for hit kids. Yeah, exactly, right? That would be the people like Rita's the good guy. She's just trying to help get those monsters to Earth where they could start their lives over. Zordon's a racist. Oh my gosh, that's what they did in Power Rangers Prime. The whole thing is about the Altarans being colonizers and taking over every planet that they save, and them engineering the save, even though they're the ones who caused the problem to begin with to save the planets from. It's so annoying. It really is. It's that base level of today's politics that is just so suffocating in a story that you can't get around. If you want to tell a story about characters that are in conflict with their government, take Go Kaiser, for instance. Go Kaiser comes from a time period where the Zangak Empire are very dominant in space. They're outrunning them when they arrive on Earth. Even, okay, so that whole situation is a good way to illustrate people being in rebellion against the government. You've got Q Ranger, where their story starts after the universe has already been dominated. Okay, by the what was the shogunate? I forget what the evil shogunate was. But yeah, they were some celestial shogunate that had taken over the universe already. The Q Rangers were fighting their way out of a dominated universe. They had to go back in time. And so again, like this is a much better way to illustrate that than being like this incredibly one-to-one political thing that's using today's conversation pieces is here now, and it's blue people. The blue people are back. Like it sucks to be a blue man group now. You're a bald blue racist at this point, according to the Power Rangers. Yeah, blue man bad. The blue man bad. But right, you have the police as villains, and that's just another compounding problem because Hasbro has admitted through Simon Bennett that they did not want to do a police series because the police were too controversial when Lupin Ranger versus Pato Ranger was up to be adapted. And of course, Power Rangers also has this other rule where they're not allowed to depict the Rangers as criminals. And of course, as you know, my solution was Power Rangers Victory Police versus Super Police. And that accomplished retaining the V and the S in their names, as well as retaining the mystery and outside of the law attitude of the Lupin Rangers on screen while contextualizing why that's still law enforcement. It's just too much. It's too much for these guys because, again, the big problem you see right here, why it killed Super Sentai, is because Hasbro assumes kids are stupid, just like Hollywood. Hasbro assumes kids are stupid. Now they could be. I've yet to meet a stupid kid. There are kids that I get pissed off with, certainly, because of the way they're acting, but that's more indicative of how their parents have raised them than that kid themselves. But a lot of them, they put two and two together pretty easily. It's like how SPD. It's like how SPD was one of the most popular seasons because it didn't pull its punches. Like of all the seasons that deserve the PG-13 rating, it was SPD. Like there's like two or three on-screen deaths in that series. There's human trafficking. There's drugs. Uh, it is a police drama, but it is very, very, very deeply masked in a PSA Power Rangers story about being a good person. It is a very deep story about like Jack and Z. Jack becomes a police officer, of course, a Power Ranger in that role as well, and then returns to being a regular citizen in order to continue helping people because he feels that has more effect than people going around with handcuffs and guns. Meanwhile, Z, who grew up in the same environment, decides to remain a police officer because she believes that the work she does as a law enforcement officer has more positive effect than what she did as a citizen. It's a very deep analysis of what's wrong with society. And it's nestled in the middle of a television show that's trying to get you shitty repainted Bandai stuff, you know? Remember how they couldn't get the colors right? There were these weird purple Power Rangers and brown ones, and they'd be like three different colors at the same time. They'd be riding around on a brown motorcycle. But yeah, the constantly with that Disney era, they were pushing it way deep into the analysis of the hero rather than the delivery of a toy commercial. You know? And then there was Operation Overdrive. Everybody everywhere agreed that was a bad idea. And that's why we don't talk about that. Or Mega Force or Super Mega Force. There are mistakes. There were mistakes. There were mistakes. I admit there were mistakes. Nobody but me will admit it, but it's true. Ask anybody. They were mistakes. They were made. We can fix them, though. We have the power now. We have the power. We have the power. We can fix them. We can fix them. And we love it. We love it. We love it when we can fix the Power Rangers without Hasbro's permission. We love it. See, one of the reasons why I do this AI stuff, guys, is because I know Hasbro is not going to go back to these suits. They're just not. They can't. They sold all of the assets away. You have to create brand new Super Sentai suits based on old Super Sentai. That's just stupid. That's just flatly stupid. So if you're expecting to see ye olde Mighty Morphin costumes or ye olde Zeo costumes or anything like that in these new productions, nope, that's not going to happen. They sold all of that. That's gone. That is a clear indicator that they will not be revisiting anything before Cosmic Fury. And Cosmic Fury is the last. So what we get after this is going to be so wildly different, it is visually incompatible with the visual traffic jam of Cosmic Fury. Just try to put that one together, right? It's a horrific. I'll spit it out. It's a horrific idea, right? Something could be worse than Cosmic Fury, but it's coming. You know it is. You know it is. But that's the problem, is that they didn't even make action figures about those characters, by the way. There are no Cosmic Fury action figures from Hasbro. Not a one. They released the Megazord. That was it. They didn't put out any individual Rangers. Probably because they were just so embarrassed. And also they had to sell Amelia because little boys don't play with, girl Rangers. Even if they're. It's how fantasy died. They don't want us to have escapism. Well, and that's just it, is that they don't understand the concept. Like when I speak of they, I'm talking about a lot of your games, movies, or anything. You can think of it the right or left. You've got Ben Shapiro here doing the same stuff that he's got over at Ben Key or whatever hell his media company is, or kind of Snow White, trans, and all this other stuff. And it's just ham-fisted political commentary with like a pause where you're supposed to laugh. And it's just dumb. And that's the same thing that She-Hulk became, was just this ham-fisted political commentary with a pause that you're supposed to laugh at. And it's dumb. It's just dumb. And that's where the escapism rots away, is because people's interest in those genres become colored by the experience they have thanks to these modern writers that do not experience the world outside of politics. Now, everybody's marinated in it. Every part of your life has some political indicator now. Can't even wear a certain color of hat, regardless of what it says on it, or else somebody's liable to knock it off your head because they think that red hat means something, even though it might have a Boston symbol. So now you can't walk around with a red hat on without getting harassed unless you walk around with a red hat on that says, hey, this isn't that kind of red hat. Please don't please don't have a problem with this red hat. It's not the same kind of red hat that you think it is. That's a little long for people to read, right? So the big problem is that kind of attitude found its way into media makers, and now we're stuck with that cycle of now people wanting to get revenge on that attitude by creating just as cringy, politically ham-fisted crap. And that's the way that I view a lot of this, is that I don't watch these shows. I just don't. People are like, hey, did you see this movie? No, I didn't. I have no interest in seeing it. Hey, did you see this show? No, I have no interest in seeing it. I don't even want to watch the clips. It annoys me that I keep running across Star Trek Academy stuff, Starfleet Academy stuff. I don't want to see that. I just don't. It's not like I'm going to puke if I see it or I'm insulted by it. It's just like, oh, great, this again. And I don't want to see it. It bores me just looking at it because I know what it is. It is a ham-fisted political comment. And it can come from either side because both of them are obsessed with it. And this is why I don't put that stuff in my AI stuff. I don't put the politics in my AI stuff. Even when I make AI stuff that's about politics, I make sure that it is so wrung out that there is only just a loose thread through there of what the characters wearing the faces of my approved political people and the people I don't approve of are doing. I don't even put the people I don't like in situations where they will get hurt or they will die or they will suffer in any way other than being brought to what fictional justice I have invented for them that involves prison time, not death, not injury. And that's, again, another thing that's completely lost on the political climate now is everybody's racing to beat up their, uh, political, it's not epitaph, it's another word. It's a political pinata. It's just something that looks like the character, and you're just beating the crap out of it to get candy or approval points, virtue signaling. Useless, useless. Conrado Javier says they have to deconstruct Power Rangers if Ryan Johnson wrote. Yeah, you'll notice this with the 2017 Power Rangers. Let's break that up. Uh, I talk about this one a lot. I've done a couple videos on it because it just stuck in my head so much that the 2017 Power Rangers. A lot of people give them crap, but I don't think they give them enough crap. To be honest with you. The actors, they didn't do anything wrong. Don't get mad at them. But 2017 Power Rangers was that deconstruction, like the Adi Shankar deconstruction of Power Rangers. Now, Adi Shankar deconstructed it to child soldiers and what happens when conflict becomes too much. Dumb. Jason David Frank was right to call that stupid when they did it, and it's even dumber when a major studio goes out and commits several years to creating something as awful as Power Rangers 2017. Now, there are people out there that are like, well, it has its... No, it doesn't. There's not a single frame in that movie that is a redeeming factor. Not one. Not even the one that has Kimberly's hoo-ha. Okay, that's not... nope, not going to happen. Not good. That whole movie is dedicated to dragging the Power Rangers down to our level. The whole point of the Power Rangers is that these are a group of people who are not like superhuman gods, but they are exemplary of the human spirit. Not just some assholes from detention hanging out with a way over the top autistic character in order to drive home that he's autistic. Right? Inexplicably hanging out with this kid. Now, no more is this present, right, than in the design aesthetic of the suits because, well, we've got to keep the big old diamond in the middle, but let's make it a galaxy. Because space. They couldn't understand what a Power Ranger was. They had to boil it down to some super soldier thing, some character that was detached from heroism and more in line with a war, a cosmic war. And that's what that story is about, is a cosmic war reigniting on Earth. That's why Rita looks like just this monster. Again, I understand the logic and why they did this. You know what? I don't understand the dream lesbian sequence. That was really weird how Rita was just like, hey, the movie's trying to tell everybody that you're bisexual, so I'm just gonna really push the envelope and lick your face in a dream. I hold you up against the wall. Is that cool with you? Too bad. Bye. And that happened. It was like Rita Repulsa sexually assaulting a teenager, Freddy Krueger style. And that just happened in the movie, and nobody, like, that was it. Nobody was like, hey, can't put that in the movie. That's sexual assault on a teenager. What are you doing? Nope. And believe it or not, that didn't sway Trini from any of her beliefs, by the way. That was just like, do it again, was her attitude about that. So that was weird. That was a really weird moment in that movie, and I don't know why it's there, along with why Kimberly is in detention for sending pictures of her vagina around. So that's very bizarre. And Jason slapping people, absolutely stupid. Bryan Cranston's face being stuck in a wall, and then you've got a late night comedian in Alpha 5. It doesn't even look like Alpha 5. It looks like the robot from Lost in Space, big dome head, disc dome thing. A lot of very stupid decisions were made there because they were trying to rationalize what a Power Ranger is as opposed to accepting what a Power Ranger is. And that's why the Super Sentai series always did better than the later Hasbro and Neo Saban series. Disney had, like I said, Operation Overdrive was a mess, but Disney did a good job of it too because they accepted what a Power Ranger was. Neo Saban did not. Neo Saban wanted to force what a Power Ranger was. For them, that was the 1993 goofballs throwing pies around fart noises. Then Hasbro got a hold. Hasbro tried to rationalize what a Power Ranger was, and a Power Ranger was a person who was just inexplicably good. That there was no driving cause behind that. They were just inexplicably good people, and that was annoying. Beast Morphers had its moments where it did its justifications with Robbie and Tyler. I think they got probably the best um, treatment in Beast Morphers. But again, it was just people being good for the sake of being good, a lot like how Rey from Star Wars was treated. That she's on the right side of history. We can't tell you what the right side of that history is, but she's on the right side. And that's what happened with these guys is they were written to be heroes, but they had no path to that heroism. Billy did, obviously, because he was the lone innocent character, but I think that had to do with the fact that he was just way over the top autistic. And I think that really is like they couldn't give him any like negative qualities because then that would be casting a light on autism being a negative quality, and so they didn't know how to negotiate that. But they were desperate to make him autistic for some reason. I still don't understand the logic behind that. Like you can't have a teenage genius. You can't have a teenage genius that like hides his power level because he doesn't want to be sent off to MIT at the age 14. You know, that made more sense to me that Billy Cranston in a TV show was a super genius, but hid his power level in order to make sure that he didn't get scooped off to a life at NASA or the SETA, is what it is in their universe. That made more sense than, oh, he's autistic, but he can do all this. No, 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 no. He's autistic. But he understands and he led them to this and he discovered all the power coins and they're, no, 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 no. He's autistic. And it's just like, what does that have to do with anything? This was such a major fuck up, and it colored so many people's idea of what a Power Ranger is because it had been like the first movie in almost 20 years. And so people were just absolutely ass over tea kettle about this because they were like, "Oh my gosh, a Power Ranger movie, and they're all the colors and the Mighty Morphin and the Tyrannosaurus Rex. I remember that guy." And then they watched the movie and they were like, "What the fuck is this?" I think the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Pterodactyl are the only two machines you can actually tell what they are without like being told what they are. Awful. It's absolutely. Zordon in the reboot looked like Tron from Ahsoka, who shaved his hair. The 2017 movie? I thought it just looked like Bryan Cranston stuck in a wall. Like they made next to no effort to hide that that was Bryan Cranston. Like, that was dead on. He just needed a Heisenberg goatee. It's just been Heisenberg stuck in a wall. Like it's just they called him up on a Zoom call and like motion captured the Zoom call. He was on reading his lines. Like it was just the most dull presentation you could possibly get out of this. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand what's going on. I really don't. I've got all of the controls turned off, so unfortunately, you're going to hear everything all the time now because it's all off. Apparently, StreamYard is just in that mood. So, if you're hearing a lot of bouncing around, I'm sorry. I don't mean to cause that for you. I don't know why this is going so poorly tonight. Microphone apparently has had enough or something. Nope, everything's tight. I don't understand. I see that it's not picking me up sometimes, but I don't understand why that is. Like I guess I have to have it up to my face now because StreamYard does not want me to be heard any other place. And well, that's right, I can't have that open at the same time. Never mind. So there we go. I'm sorry, I'll keep the mic right up here. Hopefully you can hear me here. I don't understand why it's not working. It should be working. The audio tells me that it's picking me up, and I've got all the controls turned off. So I don't understand why it's doing that. You gotta love it when StreamYard updates a driver somewhere in their server farm, and then all of a sudden everybody's ears get blown out, or you can't hear somebody. Like I am talking right into this, and I can see that that is not picking me up. Now it sounds more consistent. Okay, well, apparently I have to have my mic in front of my mouth. I'm very sorry. I'm not trying to make this the most painful live stream you've ever watched, but Oh, right. Okay, so Thrawn was looking like Elon Musk, right? And they made Thrawn fat too. That was another weird decision. And he was also really neurotic. Not nerd-rotic, but this storm was very neurotic and it was very strange, very strange. Sakura Mita says, Cider, I was write a premise of samurai themed Sentai where Pink Ranger becomes Red Ranger after war, which stops a great demon, but it cost her friends' lives. Basically, I took I took inspiration from the Meiji era. Uh, sure. I mean, like the way that that kind of stuff plays out in this tokusatsu series, it tends to kind of go that way. So that makes sense. My best piece of advice is the heavy drama of it all. It has to come to a head with some type of righteous justice. I've noticed that that's what a lot of media consumers now that are engaging in the more serious end of tokusatsu, they want a righteous end, a righteous deliverance of justice, as opposed to this guy's going to jail or this guy's been frozen down into a tiny action figure. So that's um, that's my best advice on that one is that if your character has gone through all of that and the war is the way that it is, that the end of that war needs to be very ceremonial, like a um, an all roads lead here kind of attitude. um, yeah. Conrado Javier says Ray is morally good in spite of her evil grandpa. And now, see, I tried to fix this, and I guess maybe I should make a trailer now that I have the technology. Um, I made Star Wars Knights of the New Republic. It's not a new name, I know it isn't. But I was writing this as a solution to the Ray problem. I understand people don't want to get rid of Ray. There's quite a few fans out there that like the idea of Ray, maybe not the execution of Ray. And so what I decided was that Ray was going to be the daughter of Vader. Let's see if I can find that graphic or something I can pull up here. So Ray was going to be the daughter of Vader, and how that worked was the where did that come? I had a story here. Sorry, I don't mean to create so much dead air for you. Let's see, let's see if we can get this. Come on, where did it go? So the treatment is that in his grief and isolation. Oh, there it is. There. So Vader uh, created Rey the same way that Plagueis created Anakin. He tore apart the galaxy, and this is part of Vader's siege on all these worlds. Is that in the context of the regular Star Wars continuum? Is that he's gathering the information needed that Plagueis spread around and the other Sith Lords spread around to create life. And so on Mustafar, um, he creates Rey, but Rey is not born to him as in the sense that the child just materializes in front of him and lands in his lap. Um, Tatooine in the Star Wars universe is viewed as like a vortex world, a world that the Force has some type of special connection to, and it's where Anakin came from, and it's where Obi-Wan had his maximum power, and it's where um, Luke, of course, comes from as well. It's a very special kind of world as far as the Force is concerned. As far as I know, it has some type of Force vortex attached to that space, and so um, Rey was born there, found by Jawas, and Luke comes across her while she's still a baby. Long after, just shortly after he's defeated Vader and restarted the temple, he finds Rey as a baby in the care of the Jawas, who want to get rid of her because she just eats and makes noise. And the Jawas don't have a use for that. And so he, of course, takes her in, and using the Force, he discovers where she came from, and that she's his sister. And he raises her alongside of Ben Solo. And so she is like plagued by the ghost of Vader, not Anakin. Very different. And so she's constantly having nightmares of Vader being on fire and he's reaching out for her and he's not talking to her, but he can hear her breathing. She can hear him breathing the respirator and things like that. And she's never met him. She was a child before she was created before he died, but of course on a different world and he didn't know. And so, ta-da, that's how Ray came to be. And so that's the justification for how Ray finds her way in and why she's so powerful. But by being under the tutelage of Luke, that power then makes sense because she's able to learn how to control that from an early age alongside Ben, who likewise is a Skywalker and possesses the same type of power level. And so the two of them become their own sort of, I wouldn't say Vegeta and Goku, but they're kind of on that level of where they're rivals trying to prove to Luke that they're the superior um, Skywalker, I guess. And that was how I made it into that story so far. The story largely was supposed to be about slavers, and it was a way to show Luke going around and witnessing the devastation that Vader had caused in this pursuit of creating Rey. Hopefully, the audio isn't screwy Louie again. That was annoying, but yeah. The power of one, the power of two, the power of way too much money. Yeah. The lesbian witch dance, right? Yeah, right. Osha and May were born from. Yeah, Osha. Yeah. I think that the Acolyte is going to get She-Hulked. You know, you give it time, that's going to find its way off of Disney Plus like that. It's going to get disappeared, heavily censored, maybe just disappeared and become lost media. Disney's got a new CEO too, and I think that guy's probably not going to make the same mistakes that Bob did, at least not as loudly, I guess. The weatherman was wrong. How about that? Believe it or not, that's Bob Iger's background, by the way. Sakuramita says, yeah, it's a mix of Kamen Rider and Rurouni Kenshin. Oh, this is the samurai story you were talking about. Also, the pink uh, was red, wasn't given, but curse, most like when ashes stick to Kratos. Oh, okay. So the power found its way to her, right? Um, Yeah, okay. So that, sort of like what happened with Amelia and when she received her cosmic fury powers, she was expecting pink and ended up with red because the morphin grid decided that was the color she was supposed to inherit. So they really screwed themselves over with that, right? They had to do something with Zato, and at that point, and they had no idea what to do with Zato at that point. They had to turn him into Power Ranger Jesus, and that was just compounding the stupid. Oh, and Sakuramita says in the last detail, she led new samurai rangers as she need to strong enough to hopefully it end the suffering. Okay, so she leads a new team, and hopefully it's enough to end that war. Well, like I said, it needs to be a righteous end. Like I said, when you have to have characters die and that sort of thing, there has to be a righteous end. It can't end in handcuffs. Like that's the escalation of response that I think that Gavon Infinity is probably going to trip over because in order to appeal to a more mature audience, the consequences have to be a bit deeper than the no one monsters kidnapping people in order to manifest in our reality like it was in Gozuger. The villains have to have a fatal effect in order to be more mature than Super Sentai villains. Because most of the time, Super Sentai villains aren't killing people, at least not immediately. They're taking their energy, they're draining them of their souls, which again, it's pretty much killing them, but the body isn't dead. You know what I mean? And so that's how Super Sentai has kind of got around that fatal effect of having a villain like that. But Kamen Rider again is another one that takes that on the chin. And yes, characters die a lot in Kamen Rider. That's kind of the thing. And Gavon Infinity, I don't think is going to be able to straddle the line because it won't make sense. You'll have to have villains that kill. That's the only way to really separate it from Sentai is to have this full circle back to villains that are actually a threat as opposed to, again, while a threat, they're not a fatal threat, I guess is the best way to put it. Sentai Reboot is going to have another Sentai team as rival. I don't know. I don't think Sentai is rebooting for a long time. I think at least 10 years to go before we're going to hear anything about these multicolored spandex helmet guys coming back. I think Gavon Infinity is going to be the archetype for what we're going to see out of Project Red, but I could be wrong. And this next new hero that they're flirting with showing us is going to be Guyver, and they'll go right off the deep end and do Grim Dark. I don't know. Um, Toei, like I said, was back and forth right up until Gozuger was already airing over whether or not to make Gavon Infinity their thing. So, but speaking of Gavon Infinity, I've got Gavon Infinity stuff to talk about. So here we go. Enough fan fiction stuff, right? We'll move on to the real stuff. So this comes from Project Red, and of course they're showing off some stuff from the show itself. The new trailer, of course, is the one we've already seen. It's the third trailer. We already saw that one. And so we see here Gavan Bushido, who is confronting Gavan Infinity in what appears to be a modern space. So we'll have to wait and find out if this is in fact going to be where Gavan Bushido comes from or where he has been transported to. And this is sort of a confrontation over I need to go home, you can't take me here and leave me here, that sort of thing. So it's unclear again why this conflict has arose, but it's how Super Sentai heroes usually meet each other too. Despite looking alike, they they confuse one another as enemy quite often. Of course, here's Gavon Infinity himself being very stoic and presenting the Gavarian trigger in its stoic pose as well. Um, a lot of people compare this to Sheridan, and I think that they are Sheridan. I think I have that right. Sheridan? Sheridan. I think they have that right. He is closer to Sheridan than he is Gavon. I'm still trying to figure out why they are calling him Gavon, or all of them Gavon. And again, here's Gavon Infinity, like out in a screenshot from the show. As you can see, the suit is still maintaining the high metallic sheen on it. What you'd see in the previous Gavon is that when they're out in the open, where the cameras and crew would be seen in the reflection, the suit was painted a flat silver color. And so that way, as the character was jumping around, you didn't see the reflection of the cast and crew. But thanks to new technology, and of course, with the ability to go in and just edit certain things where the character's armor is reflecting the cast and crew just for a couple seconds, a couple of frames, it's not that big of a deal anymore. So obviously, they're going to allow these characters to appear in regular combat scenes wearing their highly reflective armor, whereas in the past that was not a good idea to do with all the cameras and stunt crews. So, because again, you'd have a character doing all these backflips, and then all of a sudden, like reflected in the big, smooth center of his chest is the group of bad guys that are waiting for their turn to jump at him. And then, of course, we have the Cosmo Gavarian presented with the purple energy wave behind him, or it, rather. It's a giant robot. It doesn't have a penis. Behind it. The giant robot, of course, is not in a combination mode here. This is the base Cosmo Gavarian, presented with the purple gas behind it. Um, cosmic explosion, cosmic fire? Not sure. But in the past, these colors have been used as a negative. When you see a character appearing with this heavy backlit coloring of the purple colors, they are either, of course, a purple tokusatsu hero or they are a menace. There's some type of negative energy that is being emitted off of them that is causing this. And it doesn't appear to be either is the case here with the Cosmo Variant. It, in fact, appears to be more of just simply how its boosters function, how it flies forward, uh, sort of like how the Gundam has some type of energy trail behind it, like a flame trail, or from its boosters, or if it's using some type of electronic propulsion, it has some type of after image of that propulsion. This appears to kind of be that effect that when the Cosmo Gavarian is charging forward, perhaps its thrusters on its back have ignited and caused this color to form. I'm not sure again if the finisher gun firing is going to be purple or not. That could be why it's purple, is because the gun fires purple. It sucks up all the cosmic gas and fires all that cosmic gas at somebody. I don't know. Again, it's a very strange delivery for all of this in order to rebirth this series as something it never was to begin with, but I'm not entirely sure it's a bad thing. Now, of course, we have the actors doing their henshin poses here. Bear in mind, they will not be transforming into their armored form here. This is just the demonstration of how they go about getting to that phase. So you have Gavon Infinity doing his move. A little bit of the original in there, but very much an attention on the gun. Gavon Bushido now doing his move. And this one's probably it just spins around in a circle. Wee! This one's the most sad, in my opinion. She just wee spins around in a circle. It's just the weakest of them. I don't know. That one, you get those two like very physically involved movements, and then the girl's just like wee spin around in a circle, and then it transform. All right. So we do have now where did that go? I had that save. You gotta love it. I mean, the tabs get all mixed up. It's my favorite part about live broadcasts is when I'm doing this stuff and my tabs get all mixed up, get dragged off to some other dimension or something like that. Take a drink and then all of a sudden you can't talk about the thing you wanted to talk about. It's beautiful. It's one of the things that makes live programming the best. So anyway, here we go. Here's this. Bit of a toy commercial here, but it demonstrates what we're supposed to do with the more gear now. So apparently it does go up the butt of the robot. It has a butt, and it plugs its butt into the robot's butt in order to make the robot butt into a gun that fires more stuff. It's something, I gotta tell you. So there it is. And that is how that works to summon the Cosmo Bavarian. Of course, they're showing off the action figure. Now, of course, this is much more polished of a presentation than what we were seeing in those stills a couple weeks ago, where the action figure had all those grooves and dents in the plastic. These are obviously not prototypes. These are for public consumption. So you'll be seeing these ones out on the shelves if you're in Japan, of course. And it demonstrates all three here. And there you go. There's the Bavarian trigger. But that is, if you don't know, that is where you split the legs of the robot. And so you plug it into its butt. And so there you go. That's how. And it's a rage one that you put it. He's butthurt because it's a rage one. Gotta love it. You've absolutely gotta love it. Yeah, she looks like a cosplay girl. Yeah, exactly. We'll jump back over to that wherever that got off to. That was over here. Yeah, she looks like a cosplay girl. She doesn't look like she's like on the show. Like they just brought her in and they were like, "Yeah, you just spin around, honey. That's all we need you to do. There you go. Yay! I'm Gavon Luminous now. I'm the gold one." Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like they couldn't get the actress to do anything more involved. You know, like maybe she wasn't that coordinated or something, but she was a pretty face. And so they were like, yeah, we like your face as the untransformed character more than we like you doing Kung Fu. So we're just going to have you spin around and put all the fighting on the person in the suit. And then, you know, of course, she does this. The crazy thing is that she does this, and then you see her doing her. She does this spin around transformation, and then she's doing like backflips and parkour and leaping off of buildings and drop kicking dudes and doing these midair spins and things like that. And it's like, whoa, 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 what happened? How did you do that? Crazy, absolutely crazy. Chuck Chow is has been interpreted as equipped or electroplate, among others. Yeah, it's meant to be a henshin for Common Rider, but when it's spread out against these other characters, it feels sort of like it lost its specialness to Gavon, I guess. I don't remember. Did Sheridan and Scheider uh, say Juk Chow? Did they say that, or I don't know? How old is she? That's a good question. She looks like she's 12. I don't know. But she's supposed to be part of a two-woman team that becomes Gavon Luminous, so I don't know why it's not the other lady with her. She looks like a cop would walk you out of the building for talking to her. Yeah, exactly, right? Again, another one where we're not sure what we're supposed to get out of Gavon Infinity, because on one end you have these guys, like I said, that are doing very involved transformation sequences. Like this guy has to get down, come back up again, wing his arm around, all that. You got this guy that's got to do like a blade movement with his He's got to like wing it around and like make some type of S curve, and then she's just like wee. it's, it's very strange. It's a really weird juxtaposition, I guess, and I think that they probably thought that was funny, but for out here, it's funny in the negative way, I guess. It's funny in the sort of like, please tell me they speed that up in post, that they at least make it look like she's moving faster than she is, maybe, because it, God forbid, it's a bunch of bubbles that come out of the end of the gun too that cause this. My gosh, it would be awful if it was a bunch of bubbles. Uh, your Meiji era. I understand, Cider. I just read documents of samurai and early Meiji era that many worried about Japan being destroyed without its culture. Basically, in my story, is the world without samurais. Oh, okay. Well, that's what was going on in the Meiji era. It was illegal for anyone that was not authorized to do so to carry a sword, and that had, it was a difficult adjustment period, difficult to get people to take that on. Yeah, the most lame. Yeah, it feels pretty lame. I'm not gonna lie. I was really excited for Gavon Infinity, and now I'm feeling kind of let down by it. It's one of those ones where it's not that Super Sentai left me with like high expectations or anything like that. It's not that I'm trying to like express that. What I'm trying to tell you is that Divine Infinity started off as like this very promising. We're going to try and bridge the gap between what we're offering now and a audience that obviously wants a more mature story. To let's do Super Sentai but with less characters. I don't know if it's even less characters, just less people in suits. And that seems to be what they did is they were just like, let's just do Super Sentai but with less dudes. Gotta love it. This is better than Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. Yeah, you're right, Sagittarius say it. That's not like a high bar though. That's not really a high bar, truthfully. It's not really a high bar. But that is that's everything that I wanted to bring up. Just making sure I go through everything here. Take a look at it. Oh, the crossover. Now, it's not over for Super Sentai entirely. As promised by Toei, we will be getting movies. Now, what those movies entail is another question entirely. What we get right now, of course, is coming is the Gozuger versus Boom Boonger. I think it's summer movie. Maybe coming out in the summer might just be like next week too. Oh yeah, in March. Sorry, this is in March. Um, the guest characters, of course, will be Zio Eagle, Gokai Red, and Boken Red. We'll have the Saint Goes You Wolf versus Boom Red and these bad guys here at the end. So, what appears to be the result of Hoero winning the ring championship, the ring war, if you will, was the Saint Goes You Wolf armor here. So that's what he's wearing and why he's walking around in white. In here is that again, like what happened with Goes You Polar, it appears to have some type of purifying effect on your spirit when you win the ring war. That the negative aspects of your personality are, I wouldn't say purified, but they are made wholesome, I guess. Sort of like how Goes You Polar, despite being self-centered and despite trying to make a profit off of his heroism, continued to being a hero. Continued being the savior of his world. You know, so of course, you got the Rangers together and their big explosion thing. I don't know if Gavon Infinity will do this, but I hope so. This was one of the high points of the Super Sentai franchise was how things would just explode behind the heroes when they transformed. Um, it didn't really ever have like a good reason. I know that Power Rangers RPM tried to explain it as like the concentrated morphin energy would cause a kickback explosion, and that's what caused all of that. But I just like it. I just think it's fun. It's very exciting to have all the characters say their name and then boom, something explodes behind them. It just I don't know, it has a synergy to it. And of course, these are the villains for the crossover. Now, they had special names. That is Galaxy Circuit Groomer. So that sounds like Galaxy Circuit Groomer. I wonder what his ambitions are. And we have Universe, no one. And that guy looks like the goat see me. Remember that on 4chan? Can't get that out of my head. That's as soon as I saw this image, I was like, really? He's holding his butthole open? Really? But we do have a lot more to look forward to with what's going on in Super Sentai. Excuse me. Yes, with Super Sentai, the heroes again are not done forever. But I just think that for safer production reasons, not like safety of the actors, but safer on the investment front or a safer bet of investment rather. These movies are probably going to have a better return on that investment than a full series will. I've been an advocate for this for a while. The tokusatsu that I am trying to create again, I can create it with AI, but who cares, right? An actual production of it would matter. But the tokusatsu that I'm trying to create relies on this movie format, where you release one or two movies a year, and that just kind of gets replayed over and over and over again because that's how children work. You remember all the complaints about running the Barney tapes until they had like holes in them and things like that, and the parents complaining about rewatching all the Paw Patrol episodes on repeat, that sort of thing. Well, this is how children function. They watch that stuff over and over again because a lot of the time they're not paying attention to it initially, or they just like certain scenes and they want to watch the whole thing until they get to that scene again, then freak out when that scene happens and go back to being docile when it's over. And so that's the point of creating these movies is that uh, Toei appears to be using this as a way to keep Sentai in the rotation of youth media, but in a more replay this over and over and over again way. It's a lot to ask a child to go and rewatch 50 episodes of a season. It's not a lot to go ask a child to rewatch a hour and a half movie or an hour long movie. So that's the thinking that I had with this is that you put out this stuff, it gets put on at daycares, it gets put on when kids are ready to go to bed, things like that. And these are the heroes they come to associate with comfort and safety. And thus, they become interested in them and go and seek them out when they have their own permission to do so. And it seems to make sense to me that that's what Toei is trying to do with this, is they are trying to create a way to keep Super Sentai on the minds of young people, while Gavon Infinity is occupying the space that would be occupied by Super Sentai. So we've seen this before. Again, it's from the teaser trailer, the third teaser trailer, but there's a lot more, I guess, action footage here, but only like a few frames of it. There's not a lot to really derive any meaning from. But it does appear that our titular hero is pretty serious. He doesn't appear to be the jokey kind, so we'll have to wait and find out if he's able to um, execute on what his predecessor, proper Gavon, if you will, what proper Gavon was able to do, if Gavon Infinity is able to go that distance. And we may find out that they decided to spread what they felt were the best qualities about Gavon and the Space Sheriffs across these three and roll them together as Gavon Infinity, as a assortment of Gavons, Infinity, Bushido, and Luminous, because they felt it worked better to have the Space Sheriffs melted together into one organization under one name. It's unclear really until Gavon Infinity comes out and we actually get answers to the ambitions behind its creation. Right now is a lot of stuff that's trying to bait us into watching the show. So these clear answers aren't quite there yet, but I'm sure once the show is into like its fifth or sixth episode, we'll be getting a ton of interviews explaining the thought processes behind how these characters, their motivations, the action, the suit designs, all that stuff came to be in more serious terms than what we're getting right now. So, but before my microphone decides to crap out again, we'll check in on the chat and see what's going on, see what everybody's doing here. Gozuja versus Boom Boonja movie is going to be the true last episode of the franchise. I don't think so. I think they're going to continue doing these movies. Origa Ranger is out there somewhere. Origa Red is out there somewhere, and he's got a story to tell. And of course, there's nothing Like I proved this before when I was showing you guys those HBO options for reviving SPD and just the Gold Star Ninja Steel Ranger, just a suit really, where you would use these suits as sort of a standalone production that doesn't have anything really to do with the Power Rangers or Power Ranger show it came from, but these suits would be set in that world with a much more adult premise driving the conflict. And not adult is in the sense of like they're having sex on screen and things like that, but a much more fatal consequence to what's happening in the world. And this was my thinking in what they are um, attempting to do with Project Red, but also in the future, these Super Sentai movies may just feature standalone Red Rangers, and they're going on an adventure by themselves. Um, it's not unheard of, and Gozuger proved that a lot of people are mostly invested in these Sentai because of the Red Ranger designs. So think of that what you will. That may not be what you're attracted to Sentai about, but a great deal of people confess that the Red Ranger is really the driving force between why they get involved with it. So we'll have to wait and find out if that's the plan for these V Cinema movies that'll come out to continue the Sentai series in some form or another. If they're going to be heroes that are on their own, like Gokai Red on his own adventure out there in the universe doing his thing, and we follow him for a while, or some other hero, but still active, obviously. So, and that's nothing to say that they won't go back and try to reimagine these previous series as well in these V Cinema movies, because again, these V Cinema movies will be divorced from the main Sentai continuum because there won't be a main Sentai continuum going forward. So, it's helpful, I guess, to look at it that way that they could go crazy with it and try to experiment with what works in Sentai, but I just don't expect them to be like a lot of them to come out with a big effort to revitalize the series, just moreover to keep them in the public consciousness. Maybe we'll get mini series with a series of mini movies. Maybe. Um, I'm not sure that mini series are going to work for Super Sentai because that's just a series. And they said they were done with that. So again, I think it's just going to be the movies. The movies themselves may have a one, two, three, four uh, sequential release to them that they may be tied into some type of Space Force or Space Squad story or something, but not Space Force, it's Space Squad. A story like we saw with the Deca Ranger 20th. No, it wasn't Deca Ranger. It was just Space Squad, right? It was just Gavon Infinity, Deca Ranger, Q Ranger, and Gavon were in one movie together. So yeah, I think it was just called Space Squad. So there's nothing stopping them from doing that again, but with a dramatically smaller cast, obviously. But Doctor Who did the eighth Doctor during a 20-year absence. Um, yep, it could be again. That was a mini series for television too, but again, I think it's more going to be more the movies, and again, like they may have some sequential to them, but I don't think it's going to be tied to any like mainline Sentai continuum anymore. Um, I want to do the audition for of Common Writer or a Super Sentai series. Well, you'll have to be in Japan to do that. They tend, I don't think they've ever casted outside of Japan for either of those heroes. So you'll have to be there and try it out. Anything's worth a shot. The original actress for Sumino in Gozuger, the Gozu unicorn, the black pink ranger there, um, she is a Filipino Japanese woman. Again, I don't worry about these racial mixtures, but it was brought up in conversation, and I think she is the first, if not part of a very small group of Sentai actors that are not like um, full, I guess, full Japanese. You'd say like full-blooded Saiyan or something. I'm not really sure how to quantify that, but yeah, she's half Filipino, so Filipina, everyone to say it. So there's the door is open for people who are not like 100% um, Japanese, obviously, whatever that means. I mean, again, I understand it's people that come from the land, but how Sure, her parent obviously was, but she's still got that Hafu label to her. So it is what it is, though. And again, like I said, so if you want to do that, you want to audition for that stuff, you have to be in Japan for it. You have better odds of that. My best advice is to try and create one in your own country. Um, it's not that people aren't familiar with the concept of people wearing spandex and helmets and fighting dudes in rubber suits. It's just convincing them to invest in one that is in your language as opposed to Japanese. You know, that's your MCU comment. What? Uh, uh, Surev? Is that what you're referencing the MCU? I don't see another one here. I'm sorry. I don't know what Surev is. I don't know what that is. Sorry. But that brings us to the end of the show here. I do appreciate you coming by and checking things out with me and enjoying this evening talking about Super Sentai and the future of it and what can be done here on the US's end of it. For now, we have Gavon Infinity to look forward to this coming Sunday. Yes, this coming, well, for us, it'll be Saturday, but in Japan, it'll be Sunday. So we have that to look forward to. I imagine it's going to be quite explosive and energetic, so expect the story to kick off with like a blast, and then later on, we're going to find out that maybe things slow down pretty quick. Usually with Sentai, this is how it was. The first 5 episodes are really dynamic and energetic, and then we end up slowing down into these um, character filler arcs that explain some of the side characters and that sort of thing. So maybe Gavon Infinity is going to follow that, but I don't believe it'll stay on its high octane first episode run. That's for sure. It'll have to calm down eventually. We'll have to find out what it is, though. We'll have to find out how they use the Amor gear. We're going to have to find out how the Cosmo Gavarian manages to transform with a battery up its butt. And we'll also have to find out if the girly Gavon Luminous there can do more than spin around in circles with her bubble gun. But as always, guys, I hope that you have a good night. And I want to make sure that we understand that while Super Sentai is over, that doesn't mean that we can't enjoy it still. It doesn't mean you can't go out and make your own Super Sentai. Just don't try to monetize it. If you're making your own separate property, your own, like whatever country you live in, your tokusatsu, like an American tokusatsu, by all means monetize that. But please, if you're trying to create a new Sentai team and you're calling it Super Sentai something, please don't try to monetize that. Have fun with it, like a fan fiction, but please avoid all legal consequences as best you can. Okay, it's not fun. So, with that said, though, I hope you all have a good night and good luck out.